Okay, I welcome everyone to our webinar on Beyond TSCA, Understanding PFAS in three different US states. Today we will cover the PFAS update from three important states which have the key dates in the year 2026. So before going to we have a few housekeeping items. Everyone except the presenters is muted. This session is being recorded and we will share the recording later. There will be a short survey at the end. Please fill it out to receive a copy of this presentation and some additional resources. So your wish is our command. We tailor solutions in engineering, sourcing, compliance, and cataloging for our clients. Let me briefly introduce APA engineering. We have four different service offerings. In engineering, the activities we conduct are supporting product and design related compliance needs. And in sourcing, we help customers to source automobile parts across the world, and in compliance, we provide software solutions and regulatory support worldwide to help companies meet product and materials compliance, including chemical regulations. Think of us as your partners in managing global sourcing and compliance requirements. So, and last but not the least, cataloging, structuring and maintaining accurate product and material data using our in-house softwares. And we support companies across a wide range of regulatory requirements, not limited to mineral reporting. Like as shown on the screen, this includes areas such as IMDS, CBAM, EUDR, EPR, packaging regulations. So as you can see on the screen, many others. So however, for today's session, we focus on US states PFAS, the two for three main states. So coming to the speakers, I am Asha, Senior Engineer, Regulatory Compliance at APA Engineering. I support customers with global regulatory updates, IMDS, and other regulatory compliance programs. So yeah, before starting, I would like to just give me a moment. Okay, so here's what we will cover today. So in the introduction part, we'll just explain you why US states are introducing PFAS reporting requirements, even though the TSCA is there, the overall TSCA is there, an overview of 2026 compliance landscape, and secondly, Maine PFAS reporting and product prohibitions of 2026. And in that, reporting implementation timelines, products covered and exemptions, notable exemptions, and 2026 product prohibition requirements. And coming to Washington, the PFAS is covered by safer products for Washington. In this, new product categories which are effective in 2026, and data collection and reporting obligations, and also we will see how to prepare for January 27 reporting. And in Connecticut, PFAS notification requirements. So we will see what needs to be done, like after this effective date, like 1st July 2026. It has already been started since 1 month. And manufacturer notification obligations and product labeling requirements. And coming to the last, business impact and compliance readiness, impact on manufacturers and suppliers, and supply chain data collection. So some of the recommendations from us regarding compliance actions. And lastly, we can also see some question and answers if you have regarding our session. So we'll start with the with a very important question, that is that must be like you also might get this question, that why are individual states doing all this extra work? Is TSCA not sufficient? See, the truth is this. TSCA Section 8A7 reporting rule, it only collects information. It does not restrict or ban anything by itself. Meanwhile, PFAS chemicals are called forever chemicals, as we all know. Once they enter the environment, like water, soil, air, everything is affected. They do not break down. And hence, these state governments, that is Maine, Washington, and Connecticut, have started working towards it. Today, already 6 states have something in place for PFAS, and many more are joining every year. They're all working. Yeah, and next the 2026 PFAS compliance landscape. Like we'll see what is federal versus state. See, in the olden days, compliance was very simple: one federal law, one deadline, and done. But now in 2026, it's not like that. Each state acts on its own in spite of the federal law. Look at the 2026 timelines which are mentioned here. On January 1st, 2026, the Mine's sales ban begins, and Washington's tracking period opens, and Connecticut started its disclosure requirement for outdoor apparel. So this it already started from January 1st, 2026. Then in July 1st, 2026, Connecticut adds the notification and labeling actions. And in January 31st, 2027, so which is exactly like after 5 months from now, Washington's first annual report is due along with new restrictions. And on the 31st, 2027, the federal TSCA rule submission period is expected to open, but we all know that it has been pushed again and again since April 2026. So it's been almost like postponed from 2020 April 2026. So this is a main reason, because the other states are acting. And so you see that the states have overtaken the federal government's timeline. This is quite like unusual, and this is exactly why, like as I said, the compliance teams cannot simply wait for the announcement. So next, let us see everything like side by side. We have EPS TSCA rule. This only applies to historic manufacturing or import of PFAS between 2011 and 2022. I mean, like exactly like 10 years data, and there is no labeling requirement at all, only reporting for this one, TSCA 8A7. And mine is quite unique. Reporting is required only if a product has approved currently unavoidable use designation. Okay. And Washington triggers when total fluorine crosses 50 parts per million across 12 priority categories. And lastly, Connecticut is the strictest of these three. Okay, any intentionally added PFAS triggers both notification and a mandatory label, or the product simply cannot be sold there. For Washington, there is a threshold, but for Connecticut, there is no threshold. Even in a trace amount, they has to take action. So we'll start with the Maine, because Maine was really a pioneer here, the first state in its entire in the entire U.S. states, I mean U.S., to bring such a broad PFAS in products law. Which is in 2021. It brought the law in 2021. Now, originally, the law was very ambitious. It wanted every manufacturer to report every single product containing PFAS, no matter how small the amount. But you can imagine this become almost impossible to implement in practice. So, in August 2024, Minus legislature stepped back and amended the law. Now, reporting is required only for products that have received an approved, currently unavoidable use determination. The final implementing rule, called Chapter 90, became effective on October 7th, 2026. So we'll see the products which are actually covered from January 1st, 2026. There are 9 categories, as you can see on screen: cleaning products, cookware, cosmetics, dental floss, juvenile products, menstruation products, textile articles, skywax, and upholstered furniture. These are the 9 categories which have the product sales ban. But there are like important information on like reporting obligations. So under this pathway, reporting only apply to products that have received an approved, currently unavoidable use, as I said earlier. So whichever has the CUU determination, it is not a general requirement. It's specific to that approved use case only. Okay, each CUU notification carries a dollar 1,500 fee and is submitted through Mini Environmental Licensing System. So when filing, you will need to include the product's brick category and the GPC code and NAICS code. All these codes will be getting while registration, and other some of the other important or required fields. Right now, there are only two approved CUUs. the internal cartridge valve, and the vented cap liner, both used in cleaning product containers. Both approvals are valid through January 31st, 2031. Okay, until 2031 they can use this one. So after that, again it will trigger a notification. So on the filing structure, reporting is done as one report per product type and per PFAS substance. So a product with multiple PFAS substances present will need a separate reports for each. Means it is like per PFAS substance. So like if a product has multiple substances, means they have to report like for each different substances, and regardless of a sourcing type, suppliers need to provide proof of reporting, which the manufacturer or reporting party should be collecting and keeping on file just for an auditing purpose. And coming to some notable exemptions, if a textile is used as a component inside a watercraft, an aircraft, or a motor vehicle, it is exempt. And outdoor apparel meant for severe wet conditions gets a delay until 2029, provided the PFAS content is disclosed. They have to disclose the PFAS content, but we have exempt. I mean, these are having some exemptions. And personal protective equipment including firefighting foams or like firefighting protective gear is not treated as a textile article for this deadline, because it will be also made of textile articles, but it is not considered as such. Like also some small manufacturers, those with 100 or fewer employees, are exempt from the reporting duty, though not from the sales prohibition itself. They can't sell directly, but they are exempt. They have to report if they have PFAS. So now it's time for a quick poll. Um, your time starts now. Has your company identified a currently unavoidable use product in your portfolio? So you can answer your options. Okay, let's stop the poll. Okay. Now we'll quickly move on to reporting, that who reports and what must be reported. So who exactly must report in Maine? Only manufacturers whose product has a approved CUU designation has to report. Actually, before 2024 amendment, the blanket report all products requirement was there, and after 2024 it is eliminated. And what must they report? They have to report a product name, brand, category, the specific purpose for which PFAS is being used, and the amount of each PFAS identified properly by name and CAS registry number, and finally confirmation that they are relying on an approved CUU determination along with the associated fee payment. So it's a fairly detailed submission. So these are the details that they have to report. So coming to the reporting workflow, like how it flows. So you can look at this flow chart, that it starts with the supplier. They must disclose a PFAS content and gas numbers to the manufacturer. Then the manufacturer then confirms the product category and whether it falls under any prohibition or not. And then comes the like big question, that is a CUU designation approved for this specific product or not. So if that is, I mean, CUU designation is applied, then the manufacturer submits the PFAS notification form along with the fee to Maine Department of Environmental Protection. and the product can continue to be sold then after. But if there is no CUU is approved, sorry, so we have to remember only 2 out of 11 proposals made it through that they have got CUU. Then the product simply cannot be sold in Maine from January 1st, 2026 onwards. So let us see some business challenges. Firstly, supplier data gaps. Your like upstream suppliers very often simply do not know whether PFAS is intentionally present in their raw materials. Next, the CAS number identification. For complex multi-component products, pinning down the exact chemical identity is very difficult. And third, testing cost. Confirmatory lab testing is very expensive, and honestly, the lab capacity itself is limited right now. It's industry wide. And fourth, the data management. Tracking PFAS status across thousands of stock keeping units across multiple state rules, that is a really task on existing systems. Then fifth, the CU approval. Only like as we already repeated, 2 of 11 products have CU designation. And finally, compressed timelines. These CUU windows open 60 months before a deadline and close 18 months before. So you must move early. I mean, we have to start early. I mean, if they want CUU, so they have to start early. Okay, so let us summarize the MINI in a nutshell. So general reporting is gone and the CUU pathway is now everything. The January 1st, 2026 ban covers the 9 major categories, and CUU approvals have been very rare, that is only for just two. And manufacturers under 100 employees are exempt from reporting, but not from the sales ban. Treat CUU windows as a strategic deadlines. Proposals are due well in advance of 2029 and 2032 and 2040 phases. So we have a prominent actions will be taken in these years. So and finally, where no CUU applies, reformulation or discontinuation is really only path forward in MINI. So this is all about MINI. So next we are moving on to state of Washington. So Washington and their program is called Safer Products for Washington. This is run by the Washington Department of Ecology under WAC 173-337 and RCW 70A.350. So this is the regulation numbers for this. And what's called the Cycle 1.5 amendment was adopted number 20th November 20th, 2025, and became effective from December 21st, 2025. So this regulates 12 priority product categories, combining new sales restriction on 3 categories with new annual reporting duties on 9 categories. And this builds on restrictions already in force since 2023 for stain and water resistant treatments, carpets, and rugs. So as you can see here, we have 12 categories. Actually, they are divided into like two different buckets. First bucket restricted from January 1st, 2027. That is apparel and accessories for general use, automotive washes and cleaning products. These simply cannot contain intentionally added PFAS after that date. Means from January 1st, 2027. Next, the second bucket is for reporting only. Okay. First one is for restriction. The second bucket is for reporting with tracking starting from January 1st, 2026. Means it is already started. This includes apparel for extreme or extended use, footwear, gear for recreation and travel, automotive waxes, cookware, firefighting PPE, floor waxes, hard surface sealers, and sky wax. So these are the product categories. And who needs to report? This reporting hierarchy comes from WAC 173 series and determines who's actually responsible for reporting when a product contain PFAS. First in line is the product manufacturer. This is usually the brand owner or the company that contracted the manufacturing, not necessarily the factory itself. If that entity has no US presence, responsibility shifts to the entity marketing the product under its own brand or trademark. And if that entity also has no US presence, the obligation falls to the first US importer or distributor who owned the product. So this is the actual criteria for reporting. So to say practically, reporting responsibility is not automatically on whoever manufactures or sells the product. It depends on like where in this chain the US presence first comes into picture. So now we'll see about the data collection and reporting obligations. Now every annual notification in Washington must include the chemical name and CAS number of each intentionally added PFAS, the applicable product category and component, the technical or functional purpose, and the concentration range within the product. So here is a number to remember, that is 50 parts per million. Okay, for Washington, this is the Washington's total fluorine de minimis threshold. So if test results exceed the allowed limit, it is automatically assumed that the substance is added on purpose, unless the solid proof is provided. And one more important thing, Washington offers limited confidentiality protection for this submitted data. So whatever you submit, it is not confidential. It will be publicly posted. Okay, so please treat every information you're filing for Washington PFAS as potentially becoming public information. The next, like we how to prepare for the January 2027 deadlines. So, what should actually be done right now to prepare? First, map all 12 product categories against the SKUs, that is, stock keeping units. Second, test or assess the total fluorine levels against that 50 ppm threshold. And third, collect CAS numbers and function descriptions from the supplier in advance. And fourthly, prepare evidence for cases where PFAS presence is not intentional but happens to be trace contaminant. So these are the things one can concentrate on right now, because we have to remember tracking begins from January 1st. I mean, it's already begun, but the real deadline, both the first annual report and the new restriction lands on like January 31st. That is in next 5 months, exactly January 31st 2027. But supply chain data collection always takes longer than we expect, as we all know, right? So we need to start as soon as possible. So let us see a quick workflow. As I already briefed in the previous slide, first we need to identify which of the 12 categories your product falls under. Second, test the total fluorine content. Then check if it is above the 50 ppm threshold. If yes, you either prove with solid evidence or you report to Department of Ecology. And finally, the annual notification is filed by January 31st 2027. But please remember, this is not like just one time exercise, it is an annual cycle. Okay, you must refile every single year, and you must also keep an eye on cycle 2 rule making. So now currently it is cycle 1.5, so cycle 2 is already in process, they are making, so which may bring further restrictions as early as 2028. So cycle 2 is expected to be launched, like released in 2028. So, what does this mean for the business? Like, to speak practically, there is some relief that the sell-through exemption allows product manufactured before the effective date to continue being sold. But there are real challenges too. That Department of Ecology has not specified a standardized test method for total fluorine. So there is genuine measurement uncertainty right now. So public disclosure risk is also real, like given the limited confidentiality protections that we just saw in previous slides. And sorry, apparel, cleaning products, and automotive washes face direct reformulation pressure by January 1st 2027. So these are the three important categories: that apparel, cleaning products, and automotive washes. And naturally, testing, supplier audits, and annual filings all add to recurring compliance cost. Finally, we need to keep cycle 2 in mind. It is already being evaluated, as I said, so it may come by 2028. So to summarize Washington in a nutshell, 12 categories are in scope, 3 restricted and 9 reporting only categories. The 50 ppm total fluorine threshold shifts the burden of proof onto the manufacturer. Tracking has already begun from January 1st, 2026, with the first report and new restrictions both landing around January 31st, 2027. So treat every filing as potentially public, given limited confidentiality protection, and build a repeatable annual compliance cycle now, because cycle 2 could expand restrictions as early as possible. I mean 2028. So lastly, we have Connecticut, the third state. Yeah, so let us see the over this law, that is Act 2459, signed into law on June 5th, 2024, and is administered by the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, or shortly it is called as DEEP. Connecticut takes a phased approach. Disclosure requirements begin in 2026, notification and labeling follows later in 2026, and a full sales ban arrives in 2028. Deep finalized its approved labeling phases through an administrative order effective from December 1st, 2025. And here is what makes actually Connecticut different from Maine and Washington. It pairs the notification duty with an actual physical point of sale label, whereas Maine and Washington does not do that. So here they have to, like, they need physical point of sale label as well. And next, we have 12, product categories. That is, 12 categories are covered from July 1st, 2026. That is apparel, carpets and drugs, cleaning products, cookware, cosmetics, dental floss, fabric treatments, juvenile products, menstruation products, textile furnishings, skywax, and upholstered furniture. Quite a comprehensive list it is. And there are exemptions too, like products where federal law governs or preempts PFAS presence, and medical devices, drugs, prosthetics, and orthotic devices, and products manufactured before the applicable prohibition date, and cosmetics with only unavoidable trace PFAS coming from impurities or packaging migration. These are some of the exemptions. So, who reports in Connecticut? It's the brand owner, the company whose name is on the product, not the store which is selling it. Means if your supplier makes the product under their own brand name, then they are the one who must report, not the distributor or the reseller. For distributor or a reseller, the only job is just to get proof from them that they actually manufactured it, like before they sell the product. Yeah, this is about the reporting. So next, the important point is manufacturer notification requirements. So Connecticut actually has two separate paperworks. First one, manufacturers must send a written notice to retailers whenever a product contains PFAS. So the retailer knows to add the label. This must happen before the product goes on sale. Secondly, there's a separate reporting from form sent to DEEP. Okay, so what exactly goes into the Connecticut's reporting form for manufacturers sent to DEEP? Product description, category, and the function or purpose of the PFAS, CAS registry number, or if that is not available, then molecular formula and weight, the amount of each PFAS expressed as a percentage weight range for that particular product category, and total fluorine in parts per million if no specific analytical method exists, and of course manufacturer name, address, and designated contact person. But fortunately, DEEP allows filing either on an individual product basis or by product category, which really does reduce the SKU level filing burden for manufacturers with large product lines. And next we have the product labeling requirements, because this is very unique to Connecticut. Deep has approved specific wordings as shown here. That is, this product contains PFAS chemicals, or contains PFAS in internal components, or full chemical lists including PFAS. Manufacturers must choose one of these approved phrasings, and which is effective from 1st 2025. The label must be very clearly visible before the sale happens, and it must be durable enough to remain legible for the product's entire useful life. And by default, the manufacturer applies the label through a wholesaler or retailer. May take on that responsibility only by mutual agreement. So it's actually manufacturer's responsibility, but wholesaler or retailer can take on mutual agreement. Let's walk through the Connecticut's timeline. Firstly, we have January 1st, 2026, which is already started. Disclosure required for outdoor apparel in severe wet conditions, and written notice required for turnout gear. Then the important one is on July 1st, 2026. Notification and labeling required for all 12 covered categories, or the product simply cannot be sold. And finally, we have January 1st, 2028. The full sales ban arrives, and at that point, the labeling allowance is actually repealed. So by 2028, as I already told, the full ban will be arriving. So labeling will no longer required, right? So the product must be simply PFAS free by that time. So Connecticut, in summary, it is requiring consumer facing label. July 1st, 2026 combines two obligations at once: notification and labeling together. Filing by product category eases the burden for larger portfolios. Even a single PFAS containing internal component triggers labeling for the entire finished product. You have to remember that the labeling allowance is very temporary. Like as I said, it disappears once the full ban arrives. Okay, now it's time for a quick poll. Yeah, your time starts now. Which state's requirements feels like the biggest compliance challenge for your business? Okay, so let us end the poll now. Let us move on to the presentation. Okay, now let's look at all three states side by side and compare their exemptions clearly. Starting from the top, used products. All three states exempt the used products. Maine, Washington, and Connecticut all exempt used or previously owned products. So, second-hand items are generally fine in all three states. Next, the products already covered by other federal law. Again, all three states exempt these. If a federal law already governs that product, the state does not add any extra rules. Next, we have FDA regulated medical products, devices, and drugs. Maine and Connecticut both exempt these, but Washington has no blanket exemption. Same thing for biomedical users. Maine and Connecticut exempt it, Washington does not. And coming to veterinary products, only Maine exempt these, Washington and Connecticut do not. And aerospace, aviation, defense products, Maine has a very detailed exemption here, covering FAA, NASA, Department of Defense, Homeland Security, and DOT standards. But neither Washington nor Connecticut has anything for these departments or domains. And finally, semiconductor products and equipments. Again, only Maine exempt this. So now let us compare all side by side, all these three states, the summary. Um, Many works through phased sales prohibition combined with CUU only reporting, triggered by an approved currently unavoidable use with the January 1st ban on 9 categories. And non-compliance simply means the product cannot be sold in Maine at all. Then Washington works through annual reporting, category specific restrictions, triggered above 50 ppm total fluorine, with its first report due by January 31st, 2027, and civil penalties up to $5,000 per violation for a first offense. And a Connecticut notification plus mandatory labeling, triggered by any intentionally added PFAS with the July 1st notify and label deadline. And again, non-compliance means the product cannot be sold in Connecticut. So now, let us see the supply chain impact. PFAS compliance is really a supply chain problem, not just a manufacturer problem. It starts with the raw material supplier, flows to the component supplier, then to the manufacturer, then the distributor, and finally the retailer. And at every single link in that chain, PFAS composition, CAS numbers, and test data must flow both upstream and downstream. Supplier must disclose intentional PFAS use with the CAS level detail, and manufacturers carry the ultimate reporting, labeling, and restriction liability. And distributors and retailers need visibility into label and sell through status by SKU, and increasingly contractual PFAS disclosure and identification clauses are becoming completely standard practice. So next, we have a compliance readiness checklist. So, practically speaking, what should the team be doing? The compliance team be doing? Issue the supplier PFAS survey across the full product portfolio. Then build one certified PFAS product inventory organized by SKU and category, and verify CAS numbers for every intentionally added PFAS that they use or they identify. Then review the products against the Maine, Washington, and Connecticut category and exemption lists that we have discussed now, and maintain the notification, labeling, and test documentation properly, just for an auditing purpose, and evaluate compliance software or PLM tools for multi-state tracking. So because a spreadsheet alone will not scale for this. Establish a record retention policy meeting each state specific requirements, and finally assign the clear ownership for ongoing regulatory monitoring and renewals, because this is not just one time activity, it is an ongoing responsibility. Every year they have to do it. So let me give some of the recommendations. The first one, centralize your PFAS data in a single system of record across all three states. Secondly, map every deadline to the specific products, not just to the calendar generally. Then third, treat the July and January filing dates as a final deadlines, not something to keep working on later, but those dates, the filing should be fully done and submitted, not still in a draft form. They have to submit it fully. Then fourth, start reformulation early, because where no exemption applies, reformulation is the only option. Then fifth, prepare for public disclosure, since data submitted may well become public information. Then sixth, keep monitoring what comes next. So what comes next means like minus 2029 deadline and 2032 phase, and Washington's cycle 2 in 2028, and additional states like Colorado, Minnesota, and Vermont all entering into force through 2026 and beyond. So going further, it will be like more rules coming one by one. Yeah, these are some of our recommendations for PFAS. Yeah, so by this, we have come to an end of the session. So I hope you got a clear picture on these three states regarding PFAS reporting. So now, please let me know. So if you have any questions regarding this, you can chat, put it in the chat box or question box. Okay, I think we don't have any questions. So by this, we can wind up the session. But after the end of the session, you will be getting a feedback survey. Please take 2 minutes to provide the feedback on the same. Have a nice day, everyone. Thank you.